By the way, tanong ko lang, makakakuha ba daw ng recording nito?
Oo.
Okay.
Recorded dito.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us in the 8th installment of the Geography webinar series. This event is brought to you by the UP Department of Geography in partnership with the Philippine Geographical Society. I am Celeste Hermida and I will be your host this afternoon. Before we proceed, here are some reminders. Kindly keep your microphones on mute during the presentation. We encourage everyone to interact by typing your comments and questions in the chat box. I will bring them up during the open forum at the end of the presentation. This lecture is simultaneously streaming in the UP Department of Geography YouTube channel. Also, please note that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be made available for viewing after this event. Our featured speaker this afternoon is Professor Marco Lagman. Professor Lagman is an associate professor at the UP Department of Geography. He recently received his doctorate degree from Murdoch University, where he produced a dissertation entitled Property Owners, Workers, and Public Women, Stories and Geographies of the 19th Century Manilenia, 1860 to 1896. His research interests fall in the areas of historical geography, development geography, and disaster risk reduction, but with a focus on food and livelihood resilience. While people may get the impression that working in the academe is his dream career, Dr. Lagman's ultimate goal is to be a successful stingless bee and food forest farmer. Aside from being happily married to his college friend and busy raising 8-year-old Rafa boy, he finds so much joy taking care of his 2 senior citizen dogs, Empress Ming and Prince, and taking care of 65 stainless beehives. Without further ado, here is Professor Lagman to deliver his presentation, Messages from the Family Photo Album, Female Stereotypes in Philippine Print Advertisements, 1880s to 1930s. Sir Marco. Sir,
Okay.
Sir Marco, you're on mute. Naka-mute ka po.
Okay. All right. Okay na po?
Yes, sir. Loud and
Okay.
clear.
So, magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. Maraming salamat, Celes, who is a former student. So, it shows how old I am, no? And maraming salamat sa Department of Geography, PGS, and all the other groups na kasama po dito, no, na nag-sponsor ng talk na ito. Well, as you can see, yung title ng aking presentation is Messages from the Family Photo Album, Stereotypes in Philippine Print Advertisements, 1880s to 1930s. And I'm a fan of Gary Larson, The Far Side, who has this very sick sense of humor. No, so yun lang ang ginamit ko kasi it's really appropriate. Sometimes, pictures say a lot. So, before I begin, just to start the whole thing, no, itong topic na to, like many topics na naging part ng research ko, may kwento, no? I never really thought of using advertisements or images of women in my dissertation, but it just so happened that I chanced upon a really almost rotten microfilm at the Philippine National Library before the pandemic happened. So I saw it, read it, and it was really interesting. And I would like to thank Alfonso Lumabas, who was my RA at that time. And then I was thinking of expanding my thesis to the American period Although na-shutdown yun ng advisor ko. And again, sa UP, sa ating microfilm section and CD-ROM sections, ang daming data nandiyan. So I just would like to emphasize that kung historical geography or history in general, ang daming materials na mahanap na hindi pa napag-aaralan. That says a lot about us, no, as a people. Now, advertisements can be treated as text, no? But in the past, no, historians and geographers have long utilized written as well as visuals, so images, no, or images to produce knowledge about people and places, be it in the present or in the past, no? Now, whether it's written or in visual form, kailangan daw, sabi ni Moore, na tingnan ito as texts, no? Na when you look at it, you could actually read into it and see that it's a window to past relations, behavior, and values, no? And also, at times, it shows the spaces that were sites of their everyday lives, no? I would like to add, no, aside from that, you could also see in ads, no, especially if you study them historically, chronologically, makikita mo na nagbabago yung values ng isang grupo ng tao and what were the wider forces that caused it. Okay? So we don't, when you study, no, in the social sciences, diba, alam naman natin, it's never in a vacuum, no? At na-influensyahan siya ng maraming mga bagay, even far beyond your borders. Now, print advertisements are also seen by Belk and Polay. These are advertising people, no? As society's family photo album, no? All have family photo albums. Most of us do. And,
Chubby!
lumalabas po doon na you could see na may how we portray ourselves. We tend to come up with photo albums that are actually quite biased, no? May subjective yan, may narrative dyan na lumalabas. And then, at the same time, aside from your own self-image, it also shows you or give you instructions on how we would like to see ourselves. Diba? Because advertisements are, more often than not, no, accurate reflections of society, or at least generalized versions of it. But the sad reality is that even if there is some level of accuracy, no, may tendency then for advertising to stereotype groups, especially women, into narrowly defined roles. No, and sabi ito lang ang bagay sa'yo. And this was in 1979 when they started studying advertisements to see if nagbabago na yung pananaw sa babae at sa ating mga lipunan in the West. So this coincides with the women's movement of the 60s and 70s. No? Now Kang in 1997 said that, you know what, advertisements, for them to be accepted, there has to be some truth in it, no, that are recognized by people, that are common knowledge. No? Perfect example would be yung controversial, well, which I find funny, yung RC Cola commercial na naiampun ba ako? No, kasi clearly we are filled with ampon jokes ng childhood natin. Alam ko masama yan, lalo na kung ampon ka talaga. But at the same time, there are certain things in the commercial that are common. Yung scene sa kusina o sa dining table, yung kinilig yung lalaki nung natamaan siya ng yelo sa kanyang likod. Those are things that we experience. Those are things na cues natin yan na we understand. No? So commercials are likely to mirror developments and changes in societal values, rather than commercials changing our values or influencing it. No? May dalawang schools of thought yan. And personally, para sa akin, looking at the documents, mas umiiral itong version na ito, yung sinabi kong una. Now, advertisements in the Philippines are products of wider processes, no? Like anything in life. No? I think in historical geography, compared to other geographical subdisciplines, no, theory is important, but sabi nga nila in today's English, wider processes are more importanter, di ba? Jokingly, no? But that's the truth, no? Makikita mo talaga na, yeah, it reflects wider processes, no? For example, nagkaroon tayo na maraming dyaryo sa Pilipinas noong 1880s, 1860s. But this coincided with Spanish reforms, no? For example, yung educational reform that created the Ilustrado class, meron ding mga reforms with respect to freedom of speech. Kaya nga nagkaroon ng emerging and rather very active press during the final years of Spanish rule. And magagawa mo lang yan if there's modern printing. And also, when there's modern printing, hindi ka naman makakapagbenta ng bagay kung hindi nangyari yung Industrial Revolution, wherein things were beginning to become mass-produced and standardized or uniform. Now, in the beginning, most ads were very text-based. In fact, if you're studying Spanish, maganda mag-aral ng Spanish using ads. Kasi talaga mapapractice ka niyan. Tapos tingnan mo na lang sa Google Translate kung tama yung translation mo. Now, in the Philippines, Philippines Free Press, makita natin na yung pattern ng umpisa, 1909 to the 1910s, because I used the Philippines Free Press because that was the most readily available. Wala pa yung Philippines Herald. I'll try to look into it in the future. More text-based siya, and it catered mainly to a male audience. Like they were selling guns for hunting, which reflects na ang dami pang pwedeng mahan sa Pilipinas doon. Heavy equipment, farming equipment, fertilizers, both chemical and guano, and menswear. But suddenly, by the 1920s, women's images and products that catered to women really began to proliferate. Dumami yan. Makikita mo yan. Like una, I got bored looking at these commercials, and all of a sudden, uy, may mga babae na. And mas marami ng variety. Now, the emergence of these more visually appealing ads for an increasingly diverse set of commodities and services, many which catered to women, was the product of the following. And again, makikita mo na we don't live in a vacuum. American colonial policies in the areas of economy, and I'd like to emphasize this, the US never really invested heavily on the Philippines in terms of foreign investment. In fact, yung UK talaga yung biggest foreign investor natin up to the 1920s. No, Japan was a far fourth. No, what am I trying to point out? Wala masyadong kapital na napasok dito. So wala ka talaga dapat expect na industriya aside from tobacco and embroideries, no? And then the others, yung mga usual cash crops natin. So most of the investments here were made by American old-timers, and for the most part, we were seen really as a market for US goods. So tambakan tayo ng goods. As for education, well, kitang-kita, no, we became Philippine Free Press wouldn't explode in subscribership if it weren't for the fact that a lot of people were learning English. And there was the emergence of what we call, mass literacy. In fact, if you read newspapers at that time, like Cable News American, they would say, naglalaban na ng mga Pilipino para makapasok sa mga public schools. And then some would be told, you have to wait another year kasi wala na kami slot. And also, nagbago rin yung pananaw tungkol sa babae, wherein they were trying to justify bakit sila nasa bahay. And hence, there emerged domestic science, which became a 4-year course in Philippine Women's University. No? And also, part of the curriculum, kung may practical arts sa mga lalaki, yung mga babae po, home ec. No? Malinaw po sa American educational system that they weren't really after 3 hours, they were after practical things. Which actually mapansin mo hanggang ngayon sa atin, di ba? Ano ba practical course? Yung palagi, hindi yung essential or hindi yung intellectual stuff, no? And last but not the least, public health. Aside from education, clearly, the Americans did a lot to clean up Manila, clean up the Philippines. There were a lot of pests and a lot of mga cholera epidemics noong time na yon, but mostly just to protect their people. And also, there emerged a very commercialized and consumer-oriented economy, and you have to thank the Civil War for this sa US, uniform packaging and mass production. If you see people getting stuff in cans, tapos nakakatanggap sila ng mga canned goods in brown bags, that started during the Civil War in America. No? So, but it also democratized the availability and sale of commodities after that war. So basically, these are American traits and values and activities na transfer sa atin. No? By that time as well, efforts by American, European, and even Japanese firms, no, ang dami, to entice an emerging wage-based and increasingly westernized and more urban population where people's work was divorced from the soil. No? To become more active consumers of goods and services. So instead of making your own stuff, you just buy it. Kasi may wage ka na. So a more monetized economy really emerged in panahon ng Amerikano. And then you could not dispute the fact that there were influences in American advertising and other Western notions na hanggang ngayon nandiyan pa rin. For example, consumption as a feminine activity like retail therapy, right? It started back in the 1920s. And sadly, nung time na yon, trabaho daw ng babae to sustain the family on a daily basis. So she was responsible for cheap purchases, or in urban rural geography, low order goods. Suka, bigas, Yung mga bagay na yun, trabaho ng babae yun. Yung pagbili nun. Yung more expensive stuff, iba na yun. Now, also, there was the further promotion of yung masculine, feminine, binary, and also the middle upper class good life. So you buy products to create separation. No, I have arrived. I can now drink canned milk. Now I now have a standard banyo made with standard tiles. Hindi na po ako gumagamit ng palikuran with the antipolo method. So these were the things that people do then and now. No? Now, we would like to create separation by the things that we have or buy. That's the good life, supposedly. Now, also, at this time, in a period of rapid economic activity, there was lalong na-advance yung traditional role ng babae sa lipunan na pambahay lang sila. And last but not the least, ang end goal ng mga babae noon, or at least pinapalabas, dapat makapag-asawa ka. You should be attractive enough or desirable enough para makapag-asawa, or else you'll miss the bus. That, that terrible term of missing the bus. In fact, in reality, right now, a lot of people aren't getting married. Sabi ko nga when people don't get married, it's not that they're missing the bus. They don't want to ride that bus. No? And now, last but not the least, sex sells. Seduction sells. Then and now. And they found that out in the 1920s. Now, hindi naman ito yung first study on ads in the Philippines. In fact, Virginia Encanto, who's from the College of Mass Communications, I think she already retired, no? Has a book, no, related to this, no? But this was from the 1890s to the present, no? Very general, but also very useful. Actually, I like what she did, no? Next, no? Well, yung dissertation ko, yung penultimate chapter, sought to show na images of women in ads and in newspapers reflected patriarchal values, no, from both the secular and religious institutions that we had at that time, yung panahon ng Kastila. Now, gusto ko lang to i-argue, and Sir Joseph Pallis is here, no, so you could disagree or support this, no. The print ads, no, is a form of also space, no. It's a form of media space that could influence people from different places. So now we have terms that are viral, that were bad in the past, but ito na yung pinaka-viral po noon, that you had newspapers, that you had magazines selling stuff to people, no? Now, both works, okay siya, no? I mean, I would like to think that I did a good job, and obviously, kay Ma'am Encanto, nagkaroon ng libro sa UP Press. Pero sa totoo lang, the thing is, wala masyadong nuance, and this is something that I'd like to remind undergrad students, no? That's why you have to read your related literature. Kasi you need to frame things, and you need to understand them better. And sometimes to understand them, sabi nga na isang teacher ko sa planning noon, you have to concretize it. You have to label it. No? So gusto ko lang yon. And also, you don't limit yourself to geography. You should look at everything, especially other disciplines that are left field. That's why left field notions work. No? Doing things out of the box can work for you. Like look at marketing and look at sociology, look at other disciplines, no? Because borders are, I don't really ascribe to borders. Well, now advertising studies from the 1970s could actually provide useful tools. Now the question here is, no, can we use these categories to identify evident and latent female stereotypes in ads during the during the late Spanish and the first 30 years of American rule? Interesting na makita, magkakaroon ba tayo ng mas malalim na pagkakaunawa sa kanila sa mga bagay na ito? Can we see or really break down stereotypes and patriarchy that way? Now, number 2, na gusto ko nang isingit, these ads also show yung mga reflect wider processes and values ng tao. And we should be very careful na makita na may patterns, na may makita tayo. And I'm happy to show you na Filipino culture also was reflected in many of these ads. No? So let's start with the first one. Lissonski, or Stephen Lissonski, is a professor emeritus in a university in the States. He deals with marketing. So this is an example. This is a marketing guy. The first obvious daw na female stereotype is dependency. Makikita mo raw yan sa mga ads, no? You need for male protection, reassurance, and women are limited to inconsequential decisions. Ano bang gusto mong kulay ng kotse? Ganyan. Housewife. Obvious na. Hindi ko na kailangan i-ano yan. Itong primary role mo, taga-nurture ka and you're the keeper of the home. You're both wife and mother. Now, second, women concerned with physical attractiveness. Women as sex objects. Yung parang, wala na, like White Castle whiskey. Ano bang kinalaman ni Carmen Martin, shows my age, no? Doon sa kabayo at White Castle whiskey. Wala naman talaga. But it sells. It's attractive to men. No, that main market of those drinks. No? Now, women in non-traditional activities, ito yung kakaiba. Showing them in things that you don't expect them to be in, no, or in such situations. And then we have the career-oriented woman outside of the home. And then the voice of the authority, woman as expert, usually nurses, no. Pero ngayon, di ba, mama knows best, mga ganyan, may mga ganyan mga ads, and it's still nandiyan pa rin siya. And then equal to men. And tatanggalin ko to, ililipat ko to sa isang category later. And then I will add things that I observe on my own. Women as petty and very shallow individuals and targets of misogynistic behavior. Now, with Lissonski's work, gagamitin ko yung mga ads ng Spanish period. So let's begin. Now, first, usong-uso yung singer machine noon. Kasi noong 1860s na-develop siya. So noon, kung may konti kang pera, bibili ka noon. So ito, halimbawa, yung first, yung parang medyo pabebe siya na sana kung meron lang sana akong singer machine, hindi ako mahihirapan magtahi. Yung pangalawa naman, concerned with physical attractiveness, binibenta po yung mga ganyan. Tapos pinapakita lagi na yung mga babae nagpapaganda. No? So parang yun yung role mo, kailangan, you got to look pretty. Parang yung kaklase ko sa masters ng GIS. Sinasabihan siya lagi ng mga tao, GIS person siya. Make them pretty, yung maps. No? When in fact, it's not just that, right? No? Concerned with physical attractiveness. Noong panahon, pare, uso yung buhok na hanggang bewang. Parang pupugaran na ng kuto. No? So, yun ang sign of beauty noon. And then, merong mga notions of paano ka ba gagwapo o gaganda. Kailangan mo na accessory. Tulad nito, this is a patent, no? Ina-applyan pa lang ng El Patriarca Jose yung patent for this cigarette box, no? Tapos nakakalungkot na ang babae daw na gumamit daw nito, nako, paglalabanan daw ng mga lalaki, mag-uunahan daw ang mga lalaki. Or dito, na kung wala ka daw diamante, kung pangit ka, maglagay ka ng diamante para maraming magkakagusto sa'yo. But then and now, nangyayari yan. Now this one, petty or shallow individuals, para sa akin, medyo disturbing to, no? Nakawawa naman siya, pagbigyan mo na, bilhin mo na lang ng singer machine. Kailangan mo lang na maggumastos ng 1 peso 25 centavos per week. To give you context, 3 pesos a month ay sweldo ng isang kasambahay noon. Okay? Now, no wonder, sabi niya na she would be beside herself if her husband arrives in the singer machine. So mag-celebrate siya ng sobrang magwawala siya. So parang it's very shallow, no? Sad. This one is a lot more shallow, and also shows how we disregarded our teeth back in the day, no? Nag-away si Choleng at si Chichay para sa isang lalaki. Si Choleng nung nasampal, no? Si Chichay nung nasampal, pare lumipad yung 6 ng ipin kasi 2 bagang. Nung si Chichay sinampal, wala nang matanggal kasi pumunta na siya kay Bonifacio Arevalo. May pustiso na po siya. So, dito mo rin nakita na, yung habits natin na try to save the tooth as much as possible is only very recent. Back in the day, pare, status symbol na may may pustiso ka. No? Ngayon, parang turn off yan. No? Now, women as sex objects, no? Back in the day, yun din, yung views natin on beauty, medyo bilog-bilog yung katawan. But dito, like yung mga ads dito sa left and sa right. And then sa gitna, meron isang babae na nagkaroon ng corset, no? Na the hyperboloid shape, the form that you see in the body of a pretty girl who uses corsets from Las Novedades. In fact, may isa pa yan. Ang pangit daw na babae ay yung cowbell at dapat sinisipa. Parang ganyan. So that was very misogynistic back in the day, no? Parang ng Kastila. Now, meron din mga iba na makita mo rin na bago to. Makita mo na, yes, we can racialize, objectify, and sexualize our women for as long as they are not white. Okay? Kung hindi sila Kastila, okay lang. So kung biracial ka o native ka, local woman ka, pwede kang bastusin. Like itong kusinerang to, bakit kailangan ipakita yung kusinera na kita yung shoulders, no? And medyo tight-fitting yung damit. Especially yung tindera sa kanan, no? Now, here's another example. Itong mestiza daw na to, sobrang siyang hilig sa exportadora cigarettes na kung gagamit ka, she would give you a blow or puff. Actually, sa Google Translate, sak ang lumabas. So, mas matindi pa, no? So, she would give you a blow or a puff. No? We know what it means, no? So, what that means, and it's really terrible, no? Again, no? It started in China, no? Itong mga cigarettes na binebenta nila na may mga babae. Ang impression lang daw, ang argument ng isang Marxist geographer ay when you consume these cigarettes, it's as if you're also consuming or enjoying them. I don't know about that, no? Pero ang point is sex sells. And these, again, all of these are patents na nasa National Archives of the Philippines. I don't know if they were approved, but ito yung itsura niya noon. Women in very seductive poses or in skimpy clothes. Now, misogynistic behavior against women, or towards women. Tingnan mo naman to. We take photographs every day. And for pretty women, kung maganda ka, pwede rin naman sa gabi, magbibigyan ka namin. Or this white dude who's leering at a native or Chinese mestizo woman sa gitna. And then, last na lang and I learned this from a friend sa Australia, a Filipino who's also a graduate student. Sabi niya, sabi ko, kamusta naman yung kaibigan mo? Pretty ba? Sabi niya, saks lang. Sabi ko, aminin mo na sa akin. Sabi niya, walang pangit na babae. Yun ang sinabi niya sa akin. So, sabi ko, oo, masama naman magsabi na pangit ka ganyan. Pero ito, malala to. Sinabi lang na, kung pangit ka, manigarilyo ka para gumanda ka because you look modern or sophisticated, no? It's terrible. Now, non-traditional or career-oriented women, ito, cool po para sa akin. This mestiza does not need a boyfriend, dances, a bath, or a carriage, or bibingka. All she needs to make her happy is a box of Lex Portadora cigarettes. Again, cigarettes being a sign of sophistication and modernity during the Spanish period. Also, this mestiza likes bibingka. Na-imagine mo ba na umakit ka ng ligan, I made this for you, bibingka ako para sa'yo. Parang, you wouldn't imagine that, no? Pero back in the day, that was such a cool thing, no? Na may bibingka ako. And then, people back in the day also work, mga babae, like a woman dentist below, a woman who taught singing and playing the piano. By the way, playing the piano was a very female activity, a very feminine activity at that time. Or coming up with a bakery. And then, we have Japanese women. If 97% of the Chinese in the Spanish period were men, I think the Japanese had a lot of women who came over here, who worked as masus, no? Pero ito scientific massage to, hindi ito yung massage na iniisip ng marami. Okay? This was a serious massage, no? And there were so many of them. Slide. Now, let's go to Goffman, no? Si Goffman naman is a sociologist. Again, also a professor emeritus, no? He has categories of concealed or subtle behavior daw. Sabi niya, you have to read between the lines. Meron ka makikitang pattern daw dyan. And this is something that really benefited me, no? Nung nakita ko na, no? Now, the first one is relative size, no? When you show in an ad na ang laki-laki ng babae kumpara dun sa babae, no? Or gets so much space. Feminine touch, women craving something or caressing an item. Parang it's a form of seduction and also shows how very fragile women could be. Parang ganyan. That's the thing. Yun ang uso noong panahon. Function ranking. If you are working together, men and women in a print commercial, napakita, implied na mas importante yung role ng lalaki. No? Again, also, ritualization of subordination. Yung nag-exhibit ng subordinate actions yung mga babae like lowering oneself, lying in bed, nakaslant ka o tilted, smiling in a differential manner, or nagpapakit ka, nagpapout ka, or simply fooling around, or being distant. Wala kang pake. No? I don't care. Another one is the family. Na pinapakita, importante na nasa bahay ka and that you're protecting the nuclear family. That's very capitalistic, no? But that's how it is, no? Noong time na yon. And perhaps even until now, may mga stragglers to na ganyan. And then body display. The amount of nudity is exceptional, no? Noong panahon nung 1920s to 1930s, palala siya ng palala. And then mga people with body revealing clothes or the woman simply as an accessory to the ad. Independence, which is new, galing kay Kang, and location, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, kitchen is mine, or obsessed with beautification and grooming. Dito niyo makikita ko ano yung, ito yung 1920s, nung dumadami na yung mga ads. Now, look at the picture on the left. My God, it's as if parang nag-anabolic steroids yung lalaki. Ang laki ng ulo. Nakakatakot siya. No? So this is an example of exaggerating yung shape para magpakita ng dominance. Marami pa akong ganito. Magsama ko kayo. Another one is if I think I have a student who's interested in historical geography, particularly subdivision development in the Philippines. Addition Hills was one of the first subdivisions in Manila. No? And nasa gitna, kita mo naman yung lalaki, ang laki na naman hanggang balikat yung babae. Nakalim pa siya. And also, again, Colgate's cosmetic, ganun ulit, mas malaki dihamak si lalaki. Kung ayaw nyo maniwala sa akin, ipapakita ko yung next slide. No? Again, insular life, mas malaki dihamak yung lalaki, is taking up so much space. Same with Osram light bulbs, and same with, I think, would you be his choice for the dance, Colgate din ata. Okay? Now here, and this is something that we have to be proud of as Filipinos. No, there was a nationalista magazine or newspaper called Dipang Kalabaw. At lagi niya pinapakita na patas o yung size ng lalaki at babae. Walang-wala man, makikita nyo doon na this is very Filipino. And up to 1928 sa Philippines Free Press, there was a company that showed na the woman likes the fact that her man has a cap, but they have equal size. This is something that we have to be proud of. No, doon mo pinapakita na, you know what, sabi nila na ang tingin sa babae tilasin po ng Pilipino, generally speaking, ay patas and dapat naman talaga. Nakikita mo yan kahit sa ads ng panahon. Now, feminine touch. Squibs, natural vitamin E ngayon, di ba? Batawag dental cream, back in the day. And then we have Colgate's E-Clap, no? I don't know if I pronounce it well, or Kiss Proof. Nakapapakit ka parkwari, ganyan, mag-lipstick ako kasi lips are so female and so sexy and so feminine, diba? O ito na naman, i-clap yung powder, kala mo mamamatay yung girl. Or Lux, fragile clothes, or Cutex, or Regal, or dazzling white teeth, and pinapakita mo teeth mo, papakit ka, pagkita mo na hinawakan mo yung chin mo. Also, function ranking. Look at this. Burrows, no? It's basically a bookkeeping machine. So, pinapakita yung contrast, but the message there actually is, dahil sa burrows, ito mga komplikadong bagay na kaya ng lalaki, kaya na ng babae. Okay, babatingin. Or Takara, one of Japan's important exports to the Philippines at that time was mineral water, no? Like Tansan, where the word came from, no? Now, Takara is one brand. Pinapakita dito yung babae na ang dahil mga lalaki naglalabas ng mga baso, nagsisilbihan niya. Or, if you look at typewriter commercials back in the day, the display would always be a woman. Well, from time to time, there would be males, yung fresh graduate mo anak, mga ganyan. But for the most part, babae po pinapakita. And last but not the least, on the right, the bottom right, no, may lalaki at babae. The woman is a secretary, obviously, and the boss is on the right, taking a call, doing dictations. Now, isang usong bagay ng 1920s and 30s na wala pang masyadong kotse yung mga tao ay yung auto lunch. Lalabas tayo, mag-drive tayo at let's have lunch in the countryside. No? Like for example, going to Wawa in Montalban from Manila was a big deal. No? But dito mo yung position ng mga tao. Only the males were in the front except for one woman, and then women were at the back. And only the male was driving. So dominante talaga. Now, Camel cigarettes at the bottom, ito yung example ng, di ba sa basketball may term na box out. Ito rin naman yung term na papaligiran ka namin. We will double team you. No? So, boxed in yung babae. That's a form of subordination. Last as well, dito yung burrows, nakalagay. It's exceedingly simple. Actually, the one operating the machine is a boy. And then there's the boss telling the girl, na madali lang to. Tapos yung girl, napakamika salam. kayang-kaya mo yan. And here, Goodyear, before they became popular for tires, they were popular for creating or manufacturing shoe soles. And again, in this one, why are the women leaning while talking while there's a guy in between? There's no need for that. No? But that's ritualization of subordination. And there are many examples, buti kung isa lamang. Namili na po ako sa dinami-dami. I did siguro mga four issues per year from 1909 to 1939. It was a lot of fun and also disturbing at the same time. Or men keep fit with Laxol. But look at the woman. She's not even part of the conversation. She's just out there. Para siyang wallflower. No? So, next one, ever ready, man protecting the woman. Iodex, no? Man massaging a woman. But it's a position of dominance kasi the nape is a very sensitive place, di ba? Vulnerable yan. Or the Manila Carnival, which was so popular back in the day, no? It was like a commercial and sports spectacle at that time, no? And the carnival was also a time when you could, be more adventurous. And this is a type of seduction. And marami po yan, simula pa noong 1909, where this one was unusual para sa akin. And the woman, kita-kita mo, no? Para siyang sineseduce ng isang, I don't know what on earth that guy is, no? But the last one, this is the worst, no? Yung piver, un parfum, the adventure, and then you would see, bang! A man with his conquest, quote and unquote. No? Nakubot-ubad talaga yung babae. Surprisingly, mga 1930s to. Now, the next one, again, Kodak, and again, Oriental Cream, again, wash in yung babae. But this is also bad, yung Big Ben. First, sa alarm clock daw, silent lang. First, he whispers, then he shouts. So parang allowable yun. Allowable yun na form of dominance. Now, ito ang pinakamarami po sa lahat na yung pamilya, yung nanay, yung asawa. Okay? Now, Bear Brand, sterilized milk, and wag yung mamaliitin po to. Noong panahon na yon, the death rate in Manila in the early 1910s was parang 45 kids for every 1,000. Ang dami nun, or umaabot ng 80 kids for every 1,000 births. Clean milk was needed. Kaya nga, I think one of the members of the audience, yung kanyang advisor, did the paper on the Gota de Leche, the first NGO in the Philippines. No? And Gota de Leche basically was like very rich, mga privileged women helping other women to have access to clean milk. No? Now, again, a duty of every mother owes her children, Bank of the Philippine Islands, and then unequal goodness. A mom teaching her daughter, parang type of socialization. May isa pa nga, tuturuan, paano ka ba mamimili sa palengke? Tapos Jacob's biscuits. Ganyan. So, socialization. Or teaching your kid sa kanyang schoolwork, which, now a shared thing between husband and wife nowadays. I have a 8-year-old. It's a terrible experience to tell you. My wife is a lot more patient. I'm thankful for her. Now, anchor flower woman doing the baking while the man, oh, that smells nice. Or mentolatum para los niños. Because back in the day, marami pa nagkakastila. Or for the little folk, Campbell's. But notice something that's changing. For the first time, they're not using Western or white women. They're using Filipinas in Filipino clothes. This is the period of Filipinization. Noong 1916, di ba, nag-start na yung Jonesville, di ba? Start na Philippinize natin. That also started the whole thing sa advertisements. Nag-Philippinize na rin yung mga ads, nag-cater na sa Filipino market. It's like Nike, no? Nike is an international brand, but many times they use locals to sell their products. No, kaya maniwala, look at YouTube. Tingnan nyo Nike Hoop Dreams, Philippines PBA. Now, dito rin, no? Ngayon, umiinom ka ng cerveza negra daw para kung may dysmenorrhea ka, wag masyado masakit. Noong panahon, doctors would advise mothers to drink cerveza negra 3 times a day. Yay! Di ba? Alcohol 3 times a day for nursing moms. No? So, doon yung makita, nagbago na talaga yung lipunan. Na noong panahon, that was healthy. Not so much right now. Now, Crisco is a kind of baking condiment ata siya. Pero usong-uso yan noon na tinuturo sa mga batang babae sa schools. So doon pa lang minamarket nila, oh, kids, sa home ec, buy Crisco. Ayan. Or, yan, flies. Mom protecting the baby from, my God, what a scary big fly, no? Or mom taking care, or wife taking care of the husband who has, problems with his chan. Fantastic, no? Judicious women used Frigidaire, and it was still cool to drink soft drinks. And it wasn't Coke. Royal was very popular back in the day. Believe me, wala masyado akong nakitang Coke na time na yan. Or Horlicks, no? Drink for kids. Also, gusto ko lang sabihin, Ovaltine noon was popular not for kids. It was for people who could not sleep. Sabi nga ng kaibigan ko, talagang makakatulog ka no sa dami ng asukal ng Ovaltine. And then, salad, your husband will like, made with Kraft cheese. So, women's role. Or mother knows what I like. Or back in the day, if mom had no time but she wanted to give her husband and children something healthy, she cooked Libby's corned beef. They were saying healthy siya noon. So things have changed. The times have changed. And your mother and DMC. I don't know kay Sir Joseph, but ako nakikita ko pa to nung bata ko, yung DMC. Parang meron pa naman ata hanggang ngayon ito. Or, a wife should always greet your husband from work. Greets him with a cheery smile, release. Or, you should protect your wife and protect your home, use Yale. Okay, nasa dulo. And then, body display. Ito, obvious na ito. In fact, alam mo, pwedeng gumawa na ganitong study. Doon sa women's products doon, pwede ka gumawa ng parang geographies of the body. Aling bahagi ba ng katawan ang minamarketan? Like ito, corns, paa. Ito, pabango. Ito, legs. Ito, kilikili. Kasi sabi from the man's viewpoint, kahit nakakatuwa at maganda at nakakatuwa kang usap, kung may bukas sa kilikili, turn off daw yun. Diba? Anyways. Melba. Pampabango ata to and hubad na siya. Palmolive. Buy 2 cakes today. Palmolive was one of the most sexist of yung mga products na binibenta noon. Or ito, hubot-hubad yung babae. Or Mori Bicycle Store. The Japanese, when they emerged as in industrial power, started exporting and even had a bicycle manufacturing plant in San Juan ata noong time na yon. But look at this. They sold Mori bicycles with an attractive, tall, long-limbed, white, blonde woman. Okay? Sadya yan. Kasi nung panong wala pang ganyan. Or smart women meet. When they meet, they use hole-proof hosiery. Or ang sakit ng likod ko pero nahubaran siya. Diba? Or it makes me feel, my favorite soap, Lifebuoy. No? Or Kashmir Bouquet. And ito, Santa Ana Cabaret. Para lang sa audience, noong panahon po, bawal ang prostitution, ginawang illegal ng mga Amerikano after some time na sort of nilegalize nila. But the cabaret was the place where men could pay women to dance with them. They could go sa table and then they could negotiate where to go afterwards. So this was basically prostitution. No? Now, feminine hygiene products emerged in the 1930s. And this is one example where the mom tells the daughter, you know what, you got to use feminine hygiene. Use Zonite. Lovely legs. Backache. Again, backache pero hubad. This is disturbing, no? Menen, ganun din. Palmolive, ganun din. New freedom for women, but when you use Florazine, feminine wash ulit. Or ito, this is terrible, sa kanan. A girl's face is her fortune. Yun ang kapital mo. Di ba nakaka-insulto yon kung ngayon yan lang ang kapital mo. Kung gwapo ka o maganda ka lang. It's terrible. Di ba? Pero noon, ano yan, ina-advertise nila na, hindi, kailangan ka, maganda ka, wala kang tama sa mukha. No? Or pimples. Or ito, favorite ko, galisatum. Or neko. No? Your bath is ready, madam. Yan ang nakalagay ng El Baño está listo. Siyempre, madam, akin na po yun. Lunas galis. Whistle girls, it makes lovely tempting lips. Or ito, parang pedophile lang. What men seek, youth. That is what man always seeks. Keep that schoolgirl complexion. Or this insult na she looks old enough to be his mother because she is not using Lysol disinfectant. This is actually feminine hygiene. Hindi yan pang germs sa germs yan for your private parts. Modest does not shave even when exercising. Now, I'd like to emphasize this. The American educational system was very, very adamant that their kids exercise. In fact, we spent a lot more hours nung time daw ata na yon sa PE, no, kaysa ngayon. Why? Because they wanted a very, very healthy labor force and a labor force that could follow instructions because team sports would do that. And they wanted also a competitive people. Again, at the bottom of Modest is woman's social duty. Kailangan mo daw maging maganda. And then, kung alam niyo po yung katialis, and then prickly hit nung time na yun. Ngayon kasi katialis, pang tanggal ng sugat lang. Noon para hindi ka pangit, hindi pangit ang likod mo. Location, spaces within the home, kitchen, living room. And then, mind you, pansinin nyo, women always had to be busy because there was this patriarchal notion that if you were idle, you would be tempted. No, that's terrible. No? Lennox, no? Nagsasampay or standard bathroom tiles. Again, milkmaid, Eco floor wax, no? Housewives, kita mo, yun ang emphasis. And there were also those who were experts, like drink more milk, said this nurse. And by the way, nung time ng mga Amerikano, meron mga articles pa noon, ano ang mas matimbang? Nurse o guro? May mga ganyan. So these were the jobs that were open for women. And women who went to PGH as nurses, ang taas-taas ng tingin sa kanila to the point wherein they were subjects of articles back in the days of Philippine Free Press. Or a woman setting up a beauty parlor, a woman riding a motorcycle, or a woman who does not need a cochero and rides on her own using Firestone carriage tires. Now, a woman driving nowadays is so common. My wife is a better driver than I am. I must admit to that. No, but back in the day, car for the family pa rin. Women were driving, but dapat pang pamilya pa rin. And this was a cheap car. Ito yung mga mumurahing kotse. And also back in the day, cool ka. Horlicks tried to appeal to the women's market by showing them that gives you tremendous energy. Like when you're playing tennis or health and beauty go hand in hand. Again, Filipina in a Filipina dress. And then for sore throats, no, a woman driving. Philippine Women's University, highlights of life. Actually, nakakatuwa to. Or ang babaeng batak na batak ang katawan with so many cuts. Idol ko nga itong babaeng to, yung sa Habon Lennox. And then, modern women enjoy biking. So, going outdoors. No? Ito, Mori bicycle din to, pero hindi na siya yung gumagamit ng display na babae. Kasi, disente, wala naman. Totoo naman talaga, nag-bike kayo mga babae ng panahon. Okay? A business girl needs milk, Plymouth again riding, and then a woman with a nurse again advertising Horlicks or Ovaltine. Now, here's an example of equality. And here's an example of the rural nature of the Philippines, no? Even despite the fact that it was urbanizing. No, Wrigley's, no? Patas yan. Equidistant. Sabi mo ba, gusto mo ba nito? So parang walang inferiority dyan. Or yung bandera, it's basically a treasure for rice, no? Ang hindi nakikita dyan, sa foreground is actually a woman fixing the sacks while the men, unload the sacks. And ito, gamot, Reuters. And then again, Wrigley's. Amorsolo did a lot of paintings at that time and sketches, no? But this is an example na malamang hindi kasi it shows you how hard life is. In fact, ang Wrigley's had so many ads showing women working, no, alongside men. And finally, Reach Sports Products or tennis balls has a man and a woman. Now, just to summarize, no, at tapusin na po natin ito, advertisements in the Philippines from the last years of Spanish rule to the first 3 decades of American colonization were outcomes of wider processes. No? And here's the thing, even new methods can be applied to old sources. No? But you should also be quick to identify na may mga butas, no? Na all things, no, all categories or frames can always be adjusted, especially to reflect cultural particularities. No? Um, while descriptions and portrayals of women in Philippine ads were predominantly patriarchal, no, and underscored an emerging consumer society, some print commercials also revealed parity, patas, no, among the sexes, no, between the sexes, the promotion of exercise for both, no, the Philippinization of female images, and the recognized expertise in emerging behavior and freedoms enjoyed by modern Filipinas. And also the increasing presence sila sa iba-ibang mga konteksto at mga lugar. No? Now, I'm not saying that you can live on print commercials alone. No, you should always triangulate. No? So the use of print commercials are snapshots that will help us better understand Philippine society and the condition of its members. No? But it really holds much potential, and I would enjoin people to look more into our past and past spaces using this. Maraming po salamat.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Marco. I hope you have all enjoyed his wonderful presentation. So let's go ahead and take some time for your questions and comments. So does anybody have a question or comment that they would like to share with us? Ayan, siguro. So habang nag-iisip po sila, Sir Marco, this is a question coming from me.
Sure,
Was typing a question while you were talking. So was wondering po how these gender stereotypes continue to shape or influence the advertisements today. So especially because with the coming elections, I was thinking na during that time ba or even until now, was there is there an effect on women seeking and attaining political leadership roles because of those gender stereotypes that we see in advertisement?
Yeah. Yung time na yon, 19 up to the 1930s, I'm not really sure, no, with respect to this. But ang alam ko talaga is, hindi pa po nakakaboto yung mga babae noon. So, more so, they don't also get elected, no? Wala pang suffrage noon eh. But what is clear to me, and I could remember this, no? These are political ads. Gusto ko lang naalala ko to kasi may nakausap ko na babae when I was walking last night, which really disappointed me. Sinasabi kasi dun sa isang commercial ng panahon, I am sure yung mga those in their 40s and 50s could remember this, no? Ako ay babae. Yun, si Cory Aquino. Ito yung Kayla Marcos, na babae ako, mahina ako, pambahay lang ako, hindi ko to kaya, blah, blah, blah. What is astounding for me is that even until today, last night while I was walking, a woman, a neighbor who was in her late 50s told me, ang problema ko kasi kay Lenny, babae siya. Baka hindi niya kayanin ng pagiging pangulo. Sabi ko, hindi po ba napansin na lahat ng mga lipunang progresibo ngayon, babae. yung nag-lead sa kanila out of this pandemic. Tapos sabi ko, ikaw po mismo, executive ka sa kumpanya niyo dati, would you say mahina ka? So it was really disturbing. But at the same time, doon mo makita, like, even as late as 2015, may nakita akong commercial na inaantay, nakatatlong oras na daw na nasa traffic yung isang working woman. Pagdating ng bahay, yung asawa niya at yung mga anak niya nagka-clamor for food, so binigyan niya ng noodles na lang. Why should the husband wait for the wife to come home to feed the kids or feed himself? Diba? But that was 2015. So doon mo makikita talaga na that's problematic, no? So I would say na there are still lingering stereotypes. Sometimes nagre-reflect pa rin yan sa mga commercials natin, lalong-lalo na yung kailangan mo talaga magpaganda ng sobra para mapansin ka. Diba? Nakaka-disturb actually. Diba? Pero meron pa rin siya. In fact, yun lang sinasabi din sa literature in Western articles from the 70s to the 2010s na it seems to be persistent itong stereotype na ito, hindi nawawala. Ito dapat labanan natin. No? Ito talaga disturbing. Pero totoo yun, ang dami pa rin hanggang ngayon. Meron pa rin. Lalo na pag sa probinsya, makinig ka sa radyo, ay, nako, galing akong Bicol. No. No?
Thank you, sir, for answering my question.
There's a nice question here.
Yes, sir.
How did you...
Kelvin.
Kay Kelvin, no? How
Yes.
did you negotiate repositionality while analyzing gender stereotypes? Alam niyo po, totoo yan, ano? I will not pretend na babae ako at naiintindihan ko how it feels to be a woman. Not at all. But I do come from a background where I grew up with very strong women. And I really respect strong women. But at the same time, nakikita ko na baka may kulang. It may be possible. And that it's just not now. My whole thesis was about women. And nakita ko na there are limits to what you know. No? But at the same time, yung position mo as a male na naintindihan na, oy, na we are equal. Meron din posible kang nakikita na pwede mong ma-share sa table. No? So, yun lang. Hindi ko na alam kung paano ko pasasagutin yung tanong. No? Ako, for example, natatawa ako sa ibang mga nakikita ko at nade-disturb ako. So, yun nga siya. Enjoy siya at nakakalungkot at the same time. Kasi isip ko, nakakabastos kung babae ka. I mean, I try to empathize, but at the end of the day, hindi ako babae. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. There's also a somehow related question na may nag-send sa akin privately. So, have you ever come across related studies po na female authors daw po yung gumawa or nagsulat? And were their findings different or similar po sa mga other studies done by men dito sa with this?
Advertisements?
Yes.
Karamihan po ng mga nabasa ko, babae ang like si Kang. Kang is female. Maraming mga babae actually na sumunod after yung mga nauna. Maraming mga activist researchers who did that. No? So, yeah, more or less similar. Pero kasi, this is a different animal kasi no one has really studied 19... Kahit sa panahon ng Amerika, kahit sa kanila, bira sa kanila nag-aaral ng 1920s ads para kung sigarilyo. Yon. But for the most part, wala talagang gumagawa ng colonial period ads, which, adds nuance and quirkiness to the whole thing. No? Wala masyado. Pero, yung mga patterns, yeah. May mga similarities talaga. Meron pa rin. But not completely. Not completely.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Marco. Maria Cleofe Marpa has
Hi,
a
Pepot.
question.
Hi, Marco. Kumusta?
Welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, kasi di ba, you went through all those magazines and everything with the advertisements. I remember looking through them then nung panahon namin. I just wanted to ask, yung in comparison, yung focus nung mga ads, was it more geared toward more to women or more to men? Kasi di ba yung consumers, di ba? Sino yung gagastos? Sino ang mas malaking yung overall the ads that you saw, sino ang mas maraming tinutukan or parang iniengganyo ng mga ads na yon?
No, that's a very good question. Nung panahon ng Kastila hanggang early years ng American rule, mas lalaki talaga. Mas lalaki talaga. Although, sa panahon ng Kastila, yung mga luxury items, yan, girls, yan. Yan. Pero pagdating ng 1910s, yun nga, wala akong halos makitang commercial para sa babae. Puro lalaki lang talaga. Nung 1910s sa Philippines Free Press. And then by the 1920s, yun sabog na. Dumami na talaga. Yung pattern naman, makikita mo na nag-escalate na nung papunta na sa dulo ng 1910s. And then yun na, marami na pang babae. Pang babae kasi ako mismo, when I collect information, pag early 1910s, mabilis lang ako per issue. Pagdating ng 1920s, 1930s, napapagod na ako. Parang isang oras na kada issue. Ang dami na talaga.
O kasi makakapal na yung nun eh.
Oo, tsaka yung ads talaga, babae na talaga. Kasi buti kung wala. Halimbawa, kung commercial lang hapon, dumami lang yan noong 1930s. Pero sa babae, regardless kung anong kumpanya yan, ang dami talaga.
Okay.
Lalo na pagdating sa pampapaganda. Tsaka sa pagiging ina.
So that's why hanggang ngayon, yun pa rin yung focus nila ng ads sa babae, pagpapaganda, trabaho sa bahay, and stuff like that.
Oo.
Okay.
Die hard. No? Stereotypes die hard.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you din. Thank you for
Interesting. Oh,
watching.
kasi I just wondered. Oh, of course, ikaw pa.
Salamat, madam.
Okay.
Ay, si Sir
I think
Joseph.
si
Yeah.
Sir Joseph also has a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, sa sa presentation. Ang dami talagang data na nakita, ang daming possible readings na makuha, no. Siguro more on sa mga nagtanong kanina, baka pwede ko ring siguro bigyan pa ng isang perspective. Baka for example, yung tanong kung sino ba yung mga intended audience, no. Kanina nakita ko sa chat para may mga questions about it, no. That sexualized women's representation in ads may be a view of themselves. I would probably politely disagree with that because I think it's aimed for men. It's really aimed for men who has power, who's the breadwinner, so to speak. So even if women were shown there, it's a kind of we know it's a reinforcement of the stereotypes, no? Parang sabi nga ni Marco kanina. Pero tingin ko kasi yung mga picture na yun ng sexualization ng women, male gaze talaga to, male gaze. Hindi while pwedeng makita ng babae yon and say na that's who we are sexually, kasi sexualized object hindi naman ibig sabihin ay hindi nila nakita sarili, kasi sometimes diba being sexual can be a weapon din, can be used, pero tingin ko lang baka yun siguro, although I mean, I don't have the data, pero insight ko lang baka ganun. Ay ko lang sa iyo, Sir Marco, kung agree ka rin or may
it's also possible talaga, sir. In fact, ang sad reality din dyan is you have to look at who's coming up with these illustrations. Most of them were all of them were male. Lalaki yan. Hindi babae ang gumagawa po ng illustrations na yun. So, yeah, totoo. So, isa pa yon, yung isang punto na posible talaga yung sabi ni Sir na, well, para sa lalaki kasi they held the purse at that time. Although, ay gusto ko rin i-point out na ito yung part ng history ng Pilipinas na dumami yung mga babaeng nagtrabaho. So they had disposable income. For example, call girls. They're not call girls, prostitutes. Not call girls as in telephone operators. Yun ang tawag sa kanya noon, the call girls. No? They were very popular at that time. No? They were earning good money. Also, yung mga nasa cigar factories and also yung mga embroidery firms. No? Marami din sa kanila. So, pero it could go either way. In fact, yun nga I think it would be nice to see kung saan ba nanggagaling. No? Magandang i-explore yon. I just don't know kung may data to support arguments, no? Yun ang brutal part dyan. Tingnan po natin kung kaya. But it's still early in the day. Sir, thank you. Thank you sa comment. I am sure the study has room for improvement. Definitely. My former batchmate, may batchmate former naman. Ria Puangco has a question.
Hello, Sir Marco. Thank you so much for this lecture.
Madam.
I'm very interested. And also, as somebody who is actually in the advertising profession now, I can see parang certain residual values that we are still seeing in advertising today, as well as certain things that have kind of developed from certain stereotypes, certain streams, ganyan. Pero I was curious lang, in terms of the messaging of the ads, aside from the visuals, which are kind of the main, the main conversation. In terms of the messaging of the ads, were there any parang messaging that were empowering? Like, meron ba doon na it's your choice, ganyan? Or merong parang define your own beauty, or parang what you present is your voice?
Alam mo, wala.
Wala.
Actually, it's a good thing that you asked, no? Oo nga, parang titinan ko, parang wala pa.
So, laging defined siya by make your man happy, make your family happy, your role is like this, ganyan?
Merong isa na, like yung sa Mori, you should exercise. It's good for you.
Okay, so laging telling. Lagi siyang, they're telling the woman how to be. They're telling the woman what is acceptable for her as her role in society.
I remember one ad, Mori bicycles din. there were Chinese students in UP Los Baños, and they bought Mori bicycles to get around. Tapos naging sila yung image models na, you know what, you could go biking, you could exercise and save money by doing this. Pero yun na yun. Pero para sa akin, sa dinami-dami ng mga sexist kong nakitang yun na yung parang uy, bago to. Ito yung modernong babae. Yun yung gusto lang ipalabas dun sa ad. Hindi ko lang
Right.
sinama rito eh.
Oo.
Pero
Pero still defined, di ba? Defined
yes.
by others
Yes,
for
it wasn't
themselves.
them. Oo,
Parang
wala talaga, wala pa talaga. In fact, maganda yan na sinabi mo yan kasi maganda tingnan. Kailan ba lumabas to na, para sa sarili ko to?
Yeah,
Di
I'm so
ba?
curious. Kasi ano
Yeah.
din parang the choice was always there. I mean, you know me naman, I'm a fan of your papers, I go
Thank
to your
you.
lectures, di ba? Na tipong, the choice for the Filipino woman has always been there, but it was subversive in a sense that
Yes.
we hold the purse strings, we manage the household, we feed everybody, we have a lot of choice in the everyday running of
Yes.
things, di ba? And so parang there's always this feminine power, this female power that is unarticulated in media. But
Tama
it
yun.
exists.
Yeah, totoo yun. Totoo yun. I would agree with that, no? Hindi talaga, no? Hindi talaga, ang kagandahan kasi dyan is, ang magandang gawin dyan is, i-compare yung mga ads dun sa mga lumalabas na feature stories sa mga dyaryo at magazine. At mga novels. Kasi we have to remember na nung time na to, 1920s and 30s, ito yung strongest ang Philippine literature, lalo na Tagalog literature. Ang lakas talaga. Usong-uso nun yung nobelang Tagalog. And it says a lot about how males and females should act. So, maganda tingnan kung tumatama ba. So, ang lumalabas dito is, we have to look at other sources as well para to support what you're saying. Kasi interesting is na mo, I think kaya eh. Pwedeng
Kasi
makita na
in that
meron.
sense also, your ads, no, the advertising becomes propagandist, 'di ba? It becomes parang it's trying to brainwash people into this way of thinking, which is incredibly parang patriarchal. Pero ang katotohanan nating mga Pilipino sa loob ng pamilya at sa kung paano gumagalaw, kumikilos ang lipunan, hindi siya ganoon, 'di ba?
Hindi siya ganun.
So may gaslighting, which
Pwede.
also
Pwedeng
something that
tingnan.
we feel now within the
Pwede,
world.
pwede.
So,
Ngayon, yung kay Lenny Robredo, what
diba?
happened to me last night was terrible. So, parang,
Oo. Thank you.
thank you, Ren. Thank you, Dia.
Thank you po. I think we can accommodate 2 to 3 questions na lang po. I have a couple coming in from our YouTube channel. So let me read this one po muna. So the question says, because the more negative portrayals of women are in line with American influences and the more equal portrayals are uniquely Filipino, as you have said, can it be said that our misogynistic views are more acquired but not really rooted in Filipino values?
Ang hirap nung tanong. At tawag nito, ang kultura kasi ay produkto ng acculturation, di ba? You just keep on acquiring, modifying, etc., etc. While West American ads were quite misogynistic, no? Dito mo naman, kahit tinan mo yung ads sila nung panahon. But that was par for the course at that time. So it was something na was not just in American society, but everywhere, no? Yun lang, just to put things into context. Pero nakuha ba natin yung misogynistic values from our colonizers? Yung sagot ko doon, oo. Kasi if titingnan mo yung mga records ng mga Western accounts ng panahon, even during the 1800s, you would see na women were regarded highly by their families. No? A simple example of that would be mobility. In the case of Manila, equal yung dami ng male and female migrants. And even until now, no, most people who migrate and try to support families are women. No? So parang, oo, pwede ko sabihin na misogyny is not just an American thing. In fact, patriarchy, wag na lang misogyny na lang. Patriarchy is a Western thing. Hindi yan kasama sa pre-contact Philippine society. I think ano talaga, malinaw na yon. Klaro na po yun. In fact, sa maraming lipunan na sinakop ng mga Westerners, marami sa kanila were societies that were rather egalitarian. Yeah. So sige, hindi naman pala siya ganun kahirap sagutin. Medyo ano lang, parang, o nga no, tama. Yun po.
Okay, sir. Thank you po. There's another question, sabi niya. I did not see advertisements using images of very young or old women. There appears to have been a selective use of the young adult female. What can you say about this?
Oo naman. Actually, hindi ko lang pinakita yung mga pictures or images of old women. But usually, pag old women ang nandyan, ano yan, liniment. Vitamins. Tapos kasama niya yung asawa niyang matanda rin. Mga ganyan. Or yun nga, yung matandang babae na pinangangaralan niya yung anak niya, oy, gumamit ka ng feminine hygiene. Mga ganun. Labas po doon, wala masyado. And then there was this obsession with being young. And napansin niyo po, di ba sa lipunan natin, ang pagiging matanda o pagtanda ay hindi masyado masamang bagay. Pero sa ibang bansa, malalayan. Malalayan, lalo sa Western countries, America, being old, no? Even in the NBA, nakalagay yun, did not play, nakalagay, old. It was a joke, but it's also parang pinapalabas, tanda mo na kasi. Tayo, wala tayong ganyan. Napansin ko lang yun. Hindi ko lang alam kung tama o mali yung opinion ko. Yung opinion lang naman lamang po siya. Pero oo, noong panahon talaga, there was this obsession with being young. Ay, ngayon na din naman, di ba? Pero ngayon, parang kaya ko na, over 40, maganda pa rin ako. Di ba? Cindy Corletto, for example, if you watch TV, di ba? Tapos yung, hindi ko alam kung anong vitamin product na yun. Pero ang pagtanda sa atin ay hindi masyadong big issue kumpara sa kanila. Pero yun nga, totoo. Nung panahon na yun, ang matatandang babae ay pinapakita lamang. Ay, meron palang add-on. If you're over 30, use this so that you can be young again. Grabe, no? Pag 30 ka na, itanda mo na. Scary. No? Yeah.
Thank you po. There's a lot of questions coming in. Unfortunately, we only have time for 2 more questions po. So let me read the last 2 questions na lang po.
Meron bang
for now.
meron bang
And
gusto
then,
kong bardagulin? Meron ba akong bardagol ba? Okay lang naman.
wala naman, sir. Pero we will send these questions to you. Maybe you can exchange your answers through
Sure.
email lang po.
Sure.
Okay, so this second to the last one is coming from Glendale John po. It says, can we say that these ads paved the way for sexualized magazine industry in the modern age?
I would like to think na, like what I said about wider processes, I don't think the sexualization of women started in ads alone. You could see it in postcards, you could see it in calendars, even during that time, even earlier. So parang mas manifestation lang siya ng sexualization of women. Not necessarily that it started to pave the way for it. Say, if you're talking about pornography, during this time, there's already pornography. Meron na po. In fact, ang postcards noon, when I went to the States to do research, marami sila mga pornographic pictures of women in postcards, lalo na yung mga members ng indigenous groups natin. That was terrible na sabi ko nga sa advisor ko, would you like to see it? Kasi I don't sana. Sabi niya, no, I don't want to see it. Kasi I'll just keep it here sa files ko. Pero sabi ko, it's just terrible. It's disturbing. Yeah. So hindi ang sagot doon para sa akin ay hindi. Sabay-sabay sila. Sabay-sabay silang lumabas. Oo.
And then for the last questions po. So the first, these are 2 related questions. So is the government effective in pushing for programs that help change the mindset when it comes to female stereotyping? And what can we do within our organizations, friends, and families to create awareness about this? Do you have any recommendations?
Dito. I think the Me Too movement has arrived in the Philippines, no? And you can see that that's again a wider process, no? Dumating na sa atin, that's a good thing, no? I think we should be, In fact, I would say, no, a lot of males have, at some point in their lives, no, made that mistake, no, na hindi dapat, no. I mean, ako, looking back, it's possible, no. So, but here's an example wherein the government will actually change people's values because, it's one of the bigger institutions and the more influential institutions, no, would be the state and also the private sector, sana. But let's talk about the state. Let's talk about smoking. How do you prevent smoking? Well, you could prevent it by banning by making it more expensive. But at the same time, studies have shown that when the state interferes with what can be shown in commercials, it could really affect people's views towards something. Now, I know smoking or cigarettes and misogynistic behavior towards women are two different animals, no? But at the same time, I would like to believe na pwede siyang ituloy, no? And so we are just battling, basically it's a battle of institutions, no? It's a marketplace, society is a marketplace of ideas, no? And maraming nilalako mga bagay. But I think dun sa paglalako, the state could limit kung anong nilalako mo. Isa yun, no? But also, it has to be consistent also na gender and development should not be limited to paggagawa lang po ng atsara o sabon, mga ganyan. So, tingin ko dahil ipakita na hindi mo dapat binabasos ang mga babae. Yan, isa. Dapat bigyan mo sila ng mga trabaho na challenging. So, marami siyang levels dapat. But it starts with yung laws. Yung sa Quezon City, that's a good start, no? Na bawal na magharas ng mag-whistle bait o mag sa mga babae, that's a good thing. No? So I think you could do that. So you make it painful for misogynists to do their acts. Make it really painful. But it's a long process, no? Pero yun talaga, gawin mo masakit. And in due time, pwede magbago yung values. I think also, in the age of social media, we should also push the envelope. Diba? People should put this as part of the conversation. Lalong-lalo na ngayon, di ba, malapit na yung election, pinag-uusapan ang ano bang posisyon ng babae sa lipunan, kaya niya ba maging ganito, nakakagulat ka eh. Or, we should end misogyny. Because misogyny is also bad, we can equate it with bad governance at this point. It's terrible. Parang nag-melt na siya into one. Yun lang naman. You can do it, but you need more institutions to really push it. Plus the Catholic Church. No, sorry, 70% of the public are supposedly Catholic. So please, I think religion also, because the Christian religion is quite patriarchal. Kailangan ipakita rin yung mabago rin yun.
Thank you, Sir Marco. So thank you again, everyone, for sharing your questions and your comments about this talk. So we cannot cover all of your questions today, but we will send them to Sir Marco. So maybe you can exchange your comments and your questions through email. So again, thank you, Sir Marco. So now to show our So now to show our appreciation, the Department of Geography would like to give you this certificate of appreciation. So let me read the contents. The certificate of appreciation is presented to Marco Stefan Lagman for his valuable insights and expertise shared as virtual resource speaker for the talk Messages from the Family Photo Album, Female Stereotypes in Philippine Print Advertisements 1880s to 1930s for this Geography Webinar Colloquium Series, given this 9th day of October 2021, signed by Sir Joseph Pallis, the Chair of the Department of Geography, and Dominic Sasha Amorsolo, the Coordinator of the Geography Webinar Colloquium Series.
Ay po, salamat.
Thank you again, sir, for sharing your research with us. Now I would like to call on Professor Joseph Pallis, the chair of the department, for a brief synthesis of this lecture and also for some announcements.
Thank you very much, Celeste, and thank you very much, Marco, for that very, very interesting and truly thought-provoking lecture, especially those images. If there's anything that we can learn from this, is that it offers a whole range of various analytical lenses to look at this from various perspectives, from the issue of race, class even. Pati yung kanina, there was a question about why not older women were placed there and younger women, as opposed to younger women. Siguro it also tells you about class as well as who has the power to purchase certain kinds of products, no? Who are they aimed for? And kung saan nag-wonder din ako, although Raymond Williams mentioned this as a kind of structures of feeling, pero I wonder whether this now current intersectional analysis mode na ginagamit ay pwedeng i-apply para sa mga ads na yun, no? Pero ito nga, ang criticism ko minsan is we should also approach it with caution, kasi why would we use contemporary lenses to understand the cultural logic during that time, no? Parang baka naman ini-impose natin ang ating lenses ngayon, no? Pero just the same, no? It offers such a rich terrain, and I'm very interested to see written outputs about this, kasi parang ano siya, eye opener talaga siya. Dami kong nakitang mga ads talaga na talagang napaisip ako, no. At saka yung mga questions, no, ang gaganda din ng mga questions dito na lumabas, no. Tulad doon. At saka siguro, if I may just say this one last time, may agree ako kay Marco when he said there was this question about yung sexualized magazine industry ba yung medyo nag-cause doon. Parang tingin ko mas matagal, no? Mas earlier pa siguro. Systemic din kasi ang sexism as well as racism sa society, no? Hindi lang sa so-called old world or sa new world na tinatawag nila because of colonization, kundi in general talaga, no? Maliban lang kung when you talk about the Trobriand Islanders, Hawaii, other societies were in very matriarchal, no? Or at least kung di man correct yung term na yon, is ay women-centered, no, ang decision making. Pero ang dami talagang na-open na new things, and I'm glad that you're able to share this with us and make us become even more interested. How many other images are there in the archives that we have yet to look at, no, from our own identity politics. So thank you very much, Marco, for that presentation.
Thank you very much. Salamat din.
Yes. Two Fridays from, about 13 days from now, David Garcia is going to give a talk on October 22 at 6 p.m. He's from the University of Canterbury, PhD grad student. And TJ Cipriano, our MS Geography student, who recently wrote something about granular lockdowns in Bulatlat. We'll be talking pretty much about that too, no, and relate to a much bigger question of space and governance. So thank you very much. And we have an ICGS coming up November 4 to 5. And for those of you who are students, I know this is not really allowed for you to participate in this because that's the reading week, but nevertheless, we just like to put it out there. If you feel if you can spare some of your time, there are lots of wonderful talks here from students, from professors, from practitioners, from scholars from the allied in similar fields, no? Geographies of care, lives, specialities, experiences, and practices. And our resource plenary speakers are Scott Kirsch from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, Patricia Non, Maginhawa Community Pantry, a team of scholars and activists will be in a panel to talk about COVID lockdowns and mutual aid in a Kropotkian kind of way. And then finally, a series of talks from ESRI, people from ESRI who will be talking about new technologies, new softwares that are aimed towards care. Yes, it sounds really interesting. You can definitely attend, Ria. You can look at our website. Maybe some of us could just do that at some point, but we have a website if you want to know more about the details for this. It's happening. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Mylene. So yeah, we have this. It's happening in November 4 to 5. Yeah, pretty much. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sir Joe. And before we end this online meeting, we would like to